Panther DMX Player Programming Part 4. Transmitting PixelNet. In this video, I'll show you how to transmit a signal to control devices that use the PixelNet protocol. Specification for the PixelNet protocol can be found on the wiki at www.diylineanimation.com. PixelNet signal. A PixelNet signal can account for up to 4,096 channels and is transmitted at 1 megabit per second. The value of 170 is reserved and should not be used. The start of a normal signal transmission not in program mode is 6 bytes long. Okay, so if you don't have the Arduino IDE up and running, go ahead and start that this time. And we're going to create the two required methods within inside our program. The first method is that setup method, and it's not returning any values, so that's why it's declared as type void. And then we also have that loop method, which once again is not declaring any values, so or not returning any values, so it once again is declared as type void. So it means it's not going to return anything back to this calling program. Okay, inside the Arduino IDE there is a class, or you can call it a library, but it's basically a class that will allow us to send our protocol out over the serial ports for the PixelNet protocol. To do that, we just call the serial class. Now when we call that serial class, the first thing we have to do is say what speed we want to transmit our signal out. Now the speed for the Panther, the speed for the PixelNet protocol is 1 megabit. So to pass that into the serial class, we call the method begin, and then we pass in 1 million. So that's how we tell the serial port, which is going to be used for transmission, that we want to send out our signal at 1 megabits per second. Now it's going to take a little bit for this serial to initialize. So while it's initializing, we want to be in like a wait state, so we'll create a while loop here. So we'll say while not, basically with the exclamation mark, serial. So basically while that serial is not ready, we're just going to loop here. So we'll put a semicolon right here on the very end. So it says, okay, I'm going to loop right here. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to wait here until my serial has initialized. Okay, so let's create another method down here. And this is not going to return anything, so let's declare it as type void. Let's call it send signal. And this is the method we'll use to actually send the PixelNet signal out. Now, once again, utilizing that class of serial, there's another method that we could utilize called write. And we can tell it what we want to write. So the PixelNet protocol has a 6-byte start signal. Basically says, it tells the devices that, hey, here is a signal, I want you to play it. So that 6 bytes, first one starts as value is 170. And then the next values that make up a total of 6 bytes are 85, 170 again, and then 21 and 93. So that's the start of our signal. Okay, so now what we want to do is actually send our 4096 channels to control our device. So let's do a for loop here, and we're going to create an integer of type I, integer of value of 0, let's set it to 0. So we have a variable called I, and its initialized variable value of 0. And we're going to say while I is less than 4096, and then we'll increment I, and then within inside here we'll perform some code. Alright, some logic. Okay, so what we want to do is still utilize the serial.write method and send out some values. So let's do a serial.write, and this time we'll send a value of, let's do 65 for instance. Alright, so if we send everything out at 65, 4096 channels, if you have, like I'd have, an RGB flex strip, that will turn on 3 nodes, or 3 channels for each node, making them all appear kind of a white color. So I don't want that. I want to make everything red. So let's just do 2 more writes. And because I'm using my first node is at channel 1, and then my first node is at channel 1, but it's 3 channels. So that'll turn on my first LED of just 65%, or not 65%, at like approximately 1/4 the brightness of 255. I'm going to use my camera to show you that, and I tried 255 earlier and it just showed up like almost an orange color because it was so bright. Alright, so I can send up to 4096 channels in a single signal. Now, because I'm sending 3 here, that means I got to divide this 4096 by 3. Now I know that's not a complete 4096 signal writes. It's like 4095, I believe, is what that divides into. So I could add another, just a dummy right here, just send out the 4096 channel, make it 0, or I can just leave it. Because we're not using any device that requires a full 4096, we can go ahead and just leave it like this. Alright, so inside of our loop now, all we really need to do is just call our send signal method. Let's compile this to make sure we don't have any errors. Okay, so it did compile correctly. Turn my camera on here to record this. Okay, so there's my Panther. I'm going to hit the upload here in just a second. So there's my Panther. Over there is my flex strip that you can see. You can barely see it here. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Alright, so it's pointing it at us. So I'm going back to the Panther. It's not playing anything. That LED kind of looks like it's on, but it's not really on. Okay, because we're not turning the LED on. So let's now do an upload using the programmer. So it's uploading it. It's finishing uploading. It's going to turn all of our LEDs onto red. So now I can come back over here and I can say, okay, now instead of turning red on, let's make red 0 and turn on the second color, and we'll make that 65 as well for green. Once again, we'll hit the upload using the programmer. Go back over here and let's see. Now we get a green, so that shows you we can turn on all of our signals, all of our channels to any device. Now let's do something a little more interesting here. Let's create some variables up here. Alright, let's do a variable type of an integer and let's call it red. Set that to equal 0. So create a green. Set that to equal 0. And then a blue. And set that to equal 0 as well. Alright, so now in our loop method, we're still going to call that send serial signal for now. Let's actually create another method. And this time let's call it fade up. Alright. And let's pass in no values. So let's create a void method. And we'll call it fade up and down. Okay. Alright, so we got that method created, but now let's put some logic in here. So let's create an integer of I and set that to equal 0. Let's do a for loop, and let's say I equals 0, and as long as I is less than or equal to 255, because 255 is our maximum value that we can pass in. And then we'll increment our counter of I, or our variable. Now we'll perform some logic in here. And let's just say red equals I. And then we can do a send signal. Okay. And let's create another loop. So that faded it up. So let's do another loop called for I equals 255. And as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, and this time instead of incrementing I, we'll subtract I. So we'll subtract one value from it. I just noticed this actually should be red equals I, not red equals 0. We want red to equal I. So that make it fade up. And then over here we're going to just copy that again. So we're going to have red equal I and have it fade up. Now let's copy this code here. Actually, it's going to fade up and fade down. So the red's going to fade up and fade down. So now down here, let's make this green equals I, and green equals I here too. Paste it one more time, and now we'll make it blue equals I, and blue equals I again. Alright, so now we'll copy this fade up and down method name and just paste that here in our loop. So that's what we'll call now instead of calling the other one, instead of calling the individual send signal. Now it's going to take a little while for this to run if I were to send a full 4096 channels. Well, I have on my flex strip, I have 21 nodes, so I could put 21 right here. Okay, so let's compile that. Okay, the compile worked. Let me turn my camera back on for this part. So right now it's just still on. So right now, as you can see, it's still just on the green. So let me hit the upload using programmer. So it's uploading it now. Okay, so I tried uploading the code and it uploaded. However, I've left one part out. So I changed my variables up here to red, green, and blue. I got these variables up here. So now I need to come down here and say, oh, I noticed this part here. My signal rights need to be red, green, and blue. Alright, so let's compile that, make sure that compiled successfully. That did. Let me turn my camera back on. Alright, here, let's try to get this going this time now. Alright, so I'm recording that. Let's hit the upload using programmer. So I can see it's fading in between all the colors. I was doing it fairly quick just because I only have the small number of nodes in there. So that basically shows you how you can use the Arduino IDE with the serial class to send out a signal to control Panther, or not Panther, to control PixelNet devices. Hope you like this video. If you do, please like it on YouTube, and I'll be continue to put up more videos as well. Thank you. Oh, by the way, be sure you save this code so you can have it for later on. Have a good day. Bye.